Okay, so welcome everyone. And I'm Richard Smith from Warwick University, and I'm organizing this festival, international festival of mentoring teacher research in ELT. And I'm just going to briefly talk about what that's about. Um, there's the website here. It's easy to find. It's mentornet, that's mentrnet.net/festival. Um, and it's supported by the British Council, Pilgrim's Teacher Training Journal, and ITIL Research SIG, and also by my university and the ESRC, as you can see, the funding council there. So what we're hoping to do, what we've been doing, is trying to map and draw lessons from showcasing different initiatives involving mentoring of teacher research around the world. And we aim to map these and draw lessons from them and inspire others to engage in mentoring teacher research, or maybe organize teacher research mentoring support schemes themselves. And you can see that we've had lots of events previously. In case you'd like to see the video recordings, they're all on this website from different sorts of contexts, teacher associations, ministries, etc. And so I'm not going to talk more about that, but I just want to say that we're very excited to have an event today about integrating teacher research into pre-service teacher education, which of course is very, very, very important. And we're joined by some really great speakers today. So here we have Melba Libia Cárdenas from Colombia, um, editor. Well, I won't introduce. I'm not going to introduce each speaker very much because you can read about them on the program. And just to save time, I'm just going to say where each speaker is from and where they're speaking from, about the context. There's Elyanora Menglieva from Uzbekistan. There's Fauzia Shamim from Pakistan. I'll speak a little bit about some of my experience in Britain. Pia Tabali from Chile and Flávia Vieira from Portugal. And I think that you can see this program on the website I just mentioned. Also, Elyanora is just going to drop the link into the chat. But the program is going to be like this. Just going to go by alphabetical order of family name. Each speaker will have 10 minutes to talk about their own context and the kind of initiative they've taken to integrate practitioner research of different kinds into initial teacher education to pre-service teacher training. 10 minutes each. Then at the end of that, we will invite the speakers to comment or ask questions to one another. But then we'd like all of you to also share your questions. And if you have any questions or comments as you listen, just put them into the chat. We won't answer them as we go along, but I'll try to bring them together maybe at the end. So let's just go straight on, and I will invite the first speaker, who is Melba. Over to you. And oh, sorry, you can read about all the speakers in that program that Elyanora is going to share in the chat. So over to you, Melba.
Well, I'm just trying to share my screen. Can you see
Yes, we can.
my slides on screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Right. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for this invitation. It is a real honor to share with my colleagues this time, just to tell the story, if I could say so, about our work with the integration of research into pre-service teacher education. And from Colombia, some ideas and some thoughts in connection to what has happened at my university, Universidad Nacional de Colombia in Bogota. So this is something that is not only particular of my university, Universidad Nacional de Colombia, based in Bogota, our program, but also is part of the policies we have in Colombia, the idea of introducing research in initial teacher education. So I will share with you my experiences mentoring student teachers to do classroom research. And the origins of this idea come from my experience working with in-service teachers. So before embarking in this adventure of working with pre-service teachers doing research, I worked with in-service teachers with the idea of introducing action research as an alternative to document and share practices. So I started with a program in '95, a teacher development program that included three components in the curriculum: language development, action research, and innovation and pedagogy. And the idea was to travel with these teachers along the path, planning a project, and so that teachers would come across other action research projects. I was also doing action research, and the idea was to make them read about and learn about other teachers' experiences doing action research. So that's why I call it teachers as consumers of action research. I mean, experiences from other teachers as well. And also working with other colleagues in terms of mentoring projects, teaching, working on the curriculum, sharing the experiences in different kinds of fora, and also inviting, encouraging them, and mentoring them to publish what they have worked on. So the idea of sharing their findings was like the inspiration to create a journal, initially with the idea of promoting action research and innovation, and some reflections by teacher educators. So we started by sharing the projects in the classroom, in the in-service classroom. Then we created a symposium that we started in 2004, and we have continued working on that. And after some time, we invited pre-service, in-service, and teacher educators and researchers to join that symposium. And also we started a journal with the idea of giving voice to pre-service teachers in public and private schools, particularly in the central region of Colombia. And little by little, we created this idea of integrating also pre-service teachers in those, in the publication and also in the symposium. Now, how is student teachers research conducted in our program? This is a B.Ed program that lasts 4 years, sometimes 4 years and a half or 5 years. It depends on the student teacher's pace. And we organize the components of research in this way. In semesters 1 to 4, students get acquainted with research in an indirect way, I would say. So they study the different components of the B.Ed program. There is a course in the 5th semester, which is an introduction to research. And then students are given the chance to study 2 elective courses that are called research seminars. They have the chance to choose different kinds of seminars. And I created a seminar that is called Classroom Research. Although I'm very much inclined to promote action research, I realized very early when starting this course that prospective teachers needed to be acquainted with different kinds of research. And so the idea, although I continue promoting action research and practitioner research, I provide some sort of background information, as I will show you later on, regarding the different alternatives to do research in our classrooms. So students study 2 semesters of seminars, 2 seminars that are called Seminar 1 and Seminar 2, 2 courses. And then they are given the chance to carry out a research project, a small research project that is called a monograph, or also they can do an internship and write a report. And also they are given the chance to study some subjects in a postgraduate program, and they are valid as some sort of requirements for graduation. And I have concentrated my time in running these 2 seminars and also encouraging them to follow the path, not only to do research, but also to share what they do with other teachers, prospective teachers, and in-service teachers. So research, in our case, is a transversal element. The idea is to enhance some sort of activities along the B.Ed program, and also to motivate students to understand different kinds of phenomena. So also the purpose is to envision teacher research as an essential element that is going to help us and maybe inspire us in professional development and informed decision making. And the idea here is to conceive knowledge base not only as something that is traditional in terms of contents from different subjects, but also thinking about teachers as professionals who can experiment with different kinds of knowledge and who can also be producers of knowledge, yes, as part of their practices. So an overview of the two courses. So Seminar 1 has the idea of familiarizing students with different kinds of approaches that we can have in conducting classroom research. Yes, of course, I emphasize action research and also inspiring them to examine their practices if they are doing the practicum. Some of them are already working, they have already started working, examining what's going on in the classroom, and also guiding them along the two courses to consolidate a proposal, a research proposal, and hopefully motivate them to engage in a first experience doing research in a particular context. Sometimes they do the study or the project as part of the practicum. Other times they are allowed to observe and to participate in a particular classroom. And in other cases, they join other projects that are conducted by professors in the program. So in this case, the key principles for introducing and working with classroom research in these two seminars is to promote this reflective vision and to really foster the idea of critical professionals. So students who are not being trained to become teachers, but people who are able to examine what is happening in our teaching context to develop, of course, skills that are needed in order to explore what happens in education, and also to establish this kind of dialogue with theories, and to enable them to discover that they are also in the position of exploring settings, perhaps coming up with explanations, not necessarily creating a theory, but also theories that we try to test as part of our practice. And very important point here is to motivate them to share what they do in different kinds of scenarios. In the classroom, at the symposium, at national and local conferences, alone or with their mentors, and also to motivate them to carry on with further studies and to go back, I would say further in doing research. And in doing so, we recognize that, that teacher research is something that is cyclical, that is something that doesn't finish with the degree that they are going to get as a result of doing the monograph or the small research project, but also a possibility to carry on a long life. And at this point, I would like to emphasize something that has been highlighted by one of my colleagues in my department, is that as teacher educators and prospective teachers, we have to understand the conditions of that affect knowledge production. And at the same time, the idea is to engage ourselves in knowledge production, so that knowledge is not only produced by experts, but also that we are able to construct our own explanations of teaching, learning, and teacher education in general. And to conclude, I would like to highlight the achievements and the challenges. So integrating classroom research in initial teacher education has been a possibility to work on teacher self-esteem and to show that we can empower them to exercise agency. That is not only about reflection, but also taking action. The idea of inviting prospective teachers to take part in different fora is an alternative to include voices in different kinds of scenarios. I'm very pleased to say that in the journal that we created in 2000, we started with a section that includes voices from pre-service teachers. So at the beginning, they would be invited to particularly work on action research and innovations. And little by little, the national and international community became like very interested in this aspect. And now we receive papers from novice teacher researchers whose articles are the result of first studies in the pre-service teacher education programs. And in some cases, teachers, prospective teachers as authors, publishing with their mentors. Of course, this has been a very interesting experience to show that we can go away traditional ways of doing research and some sort of emancipation from traditional views of research. Problems, yes, we have to recognize that there are problems. But one aspect that I would highlight to close my participation in this first part is to draw your attention to the importance of being a teacher educator who is inviting other teachers, prospective teachers, to do research and also investigating our work. If we do not do research in the area, it is very unlikely that we can motivate others to do research. So what I have shared with you is the result of myself doing action research, doing research in the area, and also working with other teachers from the English, French, and German areas, examining aspects that happen in our BEd program, and particularly the elements that make other teachers possible to engage in research. And last but not least, a very important aspect is to use data and projects that we have conducted in the area and inviting former student teachers who have done research to share with the future teachers about the experiences they have traveled. And the most important thing is to be consumers of results that have been created by other pre-service teachers. Thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, Melba. It's a very rich experience you've had, and it's really, really good, interesting. I'll move on quite swiftly, and we'll have a chance to talk about this after we've heard from all the presenters. And we'll move on now to hear from Elyanora from Uzbekistan. And are you ready to present, Elyanora?
Yes.
Okay, great. Over to you.
Thank you. Just a moment. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Elyanora Menglieva. So I am currently a PhD student at the University of Warwick. So, and my supervisor is also here. So Richard is my supervisor. So I'm also a Netrus founder. So this is a special platform for English language teachers of Uzbekistan who would like to know more about teacher research, particularly exploratory action research. So, and my actually talk today is going to be about the experience that I had in my PhD project. We were focusing on introducing exploratory action research as form of teacher research in undergraduate pre-service teacher education program in Uzbekistan. So let me tell a little bit about the context and why we introduced exploratory action research. So the context in Uzbekistan is quite unique, I would say, in the sense that so we have a pre-service teacher education program called PRESET. So and it has good modules. For example, and one of the module is called classroom investigation module. So, and that was taught to undergraduate pre-service pre-service teachers. So, and they studied this module during their third and fourth year. And in one of our Netrus discussions with some teacher educators, so there was one request about introducing exploratory action research into pre-service teacher education because our teacher educators actually recognized the benefits, they experienced the benefits of exploratory action research because they did exploratory action research, they learned about it, and they said, oh, it's so such a useful tool for a teacher. And that's what we have discussed with teacher educators, and we thought that let's introduce exploratory action research to pre-service teachers. So, and while we were discussing with our teachers, we have found out a couple of things that we have to consider in before introducing exploratory action research. So one of the findings that I learned is that there wasn't a proper induction system at any educational institution for teachers, for novice teachers who are just graduate, who have just graduated from pre-service teacher education program or from university, and then in order to smoothly transition to schools or any education institution. So at schools or any education institution, there was no proper induction system. There is some induction by experienced teachers, but it's more about how to fill in some documents. It's more about documentation that a teacher should follow, but it wasn't about how become a teacher from after being a student teacher. So, and then we also have experiences of problems regarding the practicum. So, for example, the teacher educators were mentioning that students have practicum every year in their academic life. I mean, they go to the practicum every year. However, students and teacher educators do not see the value of the practicum because it's a bit not well organized. So that's why we thought that it would be good if we integrate our module with the practicum. So that's how we did. And then another thing that also appeared that we also discussed, it was about teaching young learners. So because most, I would say, the majority of students who graduate from undergrad students go to schools and they have to teach maybe in preschools or schools. So that's where we had these issues. After that, these teacher educators were mainly from Namangan region. So, and that's why we introduced exploratory action research in these two universities, Namangan State University and Namangan Institute of Foreign Languages. These are brilliant teachers who were motivated to teach exploratory action research to students, and it was a great experience to work with them. So we started introducing exploratory action research even from the second year. So when students were at the second year, they studied exploratory action research in preschool and school education programs. But the majority of students were third year students, in their third year. So we introduced exploratory action research at that moment. And the aim, when we were looking at the classroom investigation modules that was designed, we were talking about the different different topics about what we should introduce along with exploratory action research. So, and the things we all agreed that exploratory action research can help solve classroom challenges, can help develop better teaching skills. So that's why we thought the focus should be on this. Then another thing is exploratory action research. What I like about exploratory action research is it helps to reflect at every stage. So that's why reflection was there as well. So, and yes, and the most important, another important aim is to practice agency or to develop agency over the continuing professional development. So that were our aims, and sorry, and how we did it. So first we reviewed the syllabus, we edited the syllabus, we developed it, and then after that we designed our materials for every term. And for example, we taught exploratory action research to second and third year students, second year in Namangan State Foreign Languages Institute and third year in Namangan State University. So we designed our materials, we piloted them, and we had 8 sessions at that moment. But then we thought, okay, so if there were more sessions, that would be even more useful for students. And that's why we have changed it. We have redesigned our syllabus and materials and made it like 15 lessons, 15 sessions. And after that, yes, we have piloted them again, so it worked much better this time. So, and now we are piloting the next pile of materials, so to with student teachers. So, and the aim of every term, because we had to do over 2 or 3 terms, exploratory action research, and the first term we focused mainly on exploring. So, because exploratory action research actually helped us to divide everything into several terms. For example, in the term 1, we were mainly focusing at the exploratory stage. And the projects, and we asked our undergraduate students to focus more on exploring yourself as a teacher, on your teaching skills, on your practicum experience, on your past practicum experience, because some of them didn't have opportunity to teach. I mean, at that most undergraduate students actually do not work in any actual workplace. So that's why we said like, okay, but you went to the practicum, explore your teaching experience, how it went. So in the term 2, we focused more on the action stage. So after they did exploratory stage, they and the research topics were quite interesting, and I will talk about it later. So they focused in the term 2, they focused on the action stage, taking actions, planning the actions for the next practicum that they should go. So, and it also like helped them to learn more about the classroom challenge and to better plan the next practicum experience and their lessons. So, and now we are in term 3 with some students. In this term 3, we are mainly focusing on the professional development skills and how exploratory action research can help their professional development skills. And then encouraging them to read more, to explore more, and to learn more about their classroom challenge. And overall, what the aim of the whole is like, so we want to encourage students that classroom challenges happen with every teacher, and it's not scary. So with the exploratory action research, you can explore, you can learn more. So that was our main aim of
Just
introducing
a
this
minute
module.
more. Just one more
Yeah.
minute.
Sorry. So yeah, and overall, you could hear I just gave some examples of our students' poster presentations, and interestingly, their research project were about how to increase my confidence as a teacher, for example, or how to manage the behavior of students, how to teach teenagers, how to teach young learners. So their projects were very interesting to read and to learn about, because student teachers have different, I would say, understanding or different experiences of being a teacher. So it was good to see how they were looking. So overall, so what I want to say is like student teachers are benefiting a lot from this module, because they were saying that exploratory action research helped us to improve our lesson planning skills. So we understood the importance of lesson planning. We improved our communication skills because we started to talk with each other, with head teachers in the schools, with the teacher educators at the university. And yeah, and overall, it also increases, the reflection skills, which is really important.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elia. And we'll come back to that, I'm sure, later on. So Fauzia, over to you now, if you can share your PowerPoint.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, everyone. I will share my PowerPoint. I can see it. Yeah, here we are. Okay. Right. I'll be talking about integrating teacher research into pre-service teacher education in Pakistan. And I'm currently working at a teacher education institution that runs a 4-year B.Ed elementary program. This is the name of our NGO that runs this college in a public-private partnership situation. And this is the academic block of the college. So this is where we are in Pakistan. Very briefly, I would just want you to have a look at this. I won't go through everything. Sorry. Basically, this is student research that I'm going to focus on today. But of course, there are all the other things in the program which everyone else has. And what I'd like to tell you is that this program is something that is what we call the Higher Education Commission approved program. And because we are an affiliated college of a university, so we have to, the basic structure of the program and the objectives remain what what we are supposed to follow because we are an affiliated college. But so these are the very high and lofty program objectives to become social harmony, peace building, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to skip it. It's a 138 credit hour course, which has got different components: content, professional, foundation courses, and elective courses. And the research project is located within their elective courses. There are 5 specialization areas now: Urdu, English, math, science, and social studies. They have a practicum. So these are the other program components in addition to the courses, 15 credit hours. And action research, as you can see, only has 3 credit hours. It's one course that the students take in semester 8, along with their practicum. The last practicum, which is a longer practicum of 6 credit hours. So they're in school for about 4 weeks. When I started, I joined this organization about 2.5 years ago. And this is a fairly new venture. So the program started in 2019. And as I joined the organization as the academic head, I realized that the faculty were young and enthusiastic, but they had no experience of action research themselves. So I was worried about how they're going to supervise or, do the mentoring of their students. So I reached out to Richard, and thanks to him, we were able to start exploratory action research project for training of mentors. You can see all these mentors over here from September 2022 to March 2023, before our first cohort came in for doing it action research. So we got 6 action research teams. They all presented at the Teachers Research Conference, March 17, 18, 2022. And 2 articles were also published in the Stories of Teacher Mentoring. And as I said, thank you to Richard for all his support that he provided us. The action research, I just want to go straight to the challenges. Action research is done during the 4-week period of practicum, which is, so they're doing practicum and action research at the same time when they are in schools for 4 weeks. And they also have to plan the action research projects within the scope of the work. So the schools share a set of learning objectives that need to be covered during the 4 weeks. Their practicum, in the practicum, then their research has to be within those boundaries, because then we don't want to disrupt school timetables and stuff, which is an issue, quite an issue for some students, because they want to do some innovative work, but they might not get the opportunity within those boundaries. Students do not have enough time to consult with supervisors before, during the practicum, because competing priorities, they've got lesson planning to do, they've got a teaching portfolio to work on, and so on. There are communication issues with school in terms of requirements of action research. And we figured out that they didn't understand why some of our students would want to interview, some of our student teachers would want to interview their students or take their work samples. So we've tried to sort this out, and I'll tell you in a minute how we're doing it. The concerns were regarding the ethics and safeguarding of children and the research participants. And of course, the biggest issue is AI-generated research work, which we needed to think about how to manage that. Steps to address the challenge. In terms of time, we have a research methods course in semester 7. And we try to give them the school teaching schedule during that course, in the research methods course, so that when they start planning the projects, they know exactly what are the areas in which they can work. So for example, if they want to do something in plants in a science course, they cannot because the students have already done that part in their courses, or something similar. We also then did supervisor allocation for support in topic selection in semester 7, like the last last 4 weeks, instead of waiting till the end. Yeah, because as soon as the semester begins, they go straight into schools, and therefore there's really no time to talk to them and get their fine-tuning done and so on. During the data collection period, we decided to have online meetings with supervisors because they could meet in their own time. And I mean, it's a burden on the supervisors, but I think it's good for the students. And we also asked them to keep a record of meetings according to the given guidelines, and I'll share these with you in a minute. We worked out some milestones for research. We shared the template of how they're going to keep a record of the meetings, just to give it a little more structure so that it does not sort of get lost in the practicum. The ethics and safeguarding issues we tried to address with some ethics workshop conducted for students just before they were entering the field, and just focusing on the kinds of things which were important for not just the practicum, but also for doing research in the schools. For example, they were given templates of participant information in informed consent forms, so they didn't have to worry too much, but they all have to use it, and they have to put it as, excuse me, appendices in their final research reports. And we shared with some SOPs with them and the students. For example, no photos allowed of children, because it's a very complex process of getting going to the parents and the guardians and getting permission for that. So we said no photos. You can take photos of the walls and the the other blackboard work, but not of the students. This was the milestones in research that we had developed. So as I said, let me go to the next one and share those with you, just a couple. So we had, for example, milestone 1, milestone 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the reason was, as I said, was they would help the supervisors and figure out what they wanted to do in a particular meeting. So through the whole process, not more than 5 meetings, 5 half-hour meetings, because the supervisors were also complaining that the students want them, that supervisors on demand. Anytime they say, so what do I do? So we try to structure that and make it comfortable for the students and the supervisors by giving this dedicated times and work progress reports to be made accordingly. The students were asked to keep a record of this, and they will submit it with their midterm review now. The one thing we did was we did change the assessment. And the assessment main change was that earlier on also we had a midterm oral presentation, which was more formative, and we did have a mark attached to it because the students somehow work for grades. But anyways, it was just to help them, and this was done with the entire team, not just the supervisors. So for example, for English, with the entire English team, so they could get more support. And then the final report, we reduced the word length, but we have introduced a Viva this time. And the Viva is mainly to but ensure that the work that they have done and they've produced is not AI generated. So I'll skip this. Other support mechanisms are that we have done a template for midterm presentations. We have given them a template for the final report. And this is simply because we feel that it's just a 3 credit hour course, and we don't want them to be worried about the structures and how do I write a report and so on. So we give them very clear structures to actually just put in their own data, and they can do the reports. We also have supervisors group meetings before, during, after planning meetings. And this is something, once again, which we have started in a more formal manner. We used to have these meetings earlier on. We have a supervisors WhatsApp group for ongoing discussions, but this time we are doing it in a more structured way so that we all know where we are and we can learn from each other's experiences within the supervisor group. And that's it. I've been talking I'm actually the coordinator for this action research course this term. So as you can see, what I've shared with you is very much from the ground, where I'm facing these problems with my team of supervisors, and we're trying to address them as we go along. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Fauzia. And I'm going to now just talk a little bit about not okay. Mine is a bit different from the ones so far. Um, I'm talking about not a B.Ed 4-year program, but an MA TESOL program, which I've been involved with in at the University of Warwick, and I'm calling it preparatory action research. Although maybe I like the term formative that Melba used earlier. So, in a situation where pre-service students don't have a practicum, because that is my situation, or before the practicum, if it is a 4-year B.Ed program, for example, how can they be prepared for practitioner research? Is a maybe a general question. Of course, they can learn about practitioner research, but I want to think about how could we engage students in a form of practitioner research which is not involving real teaching in a practicum. Now, the context in which I've been working is a university in the UK, teaching on an MA TESOL program. For pre-service student teachers, we do have many students coming from places like China, especially from China these days, who have not taught before, but we are expected to, well, in some sense, prepare them for teaching, although we are not offering a teaching qualification. We're offering an MA, a master's program in TESOL. So in term one, it's divided into 3 terms in this 1 year. In term one, they have various foundation programs about methodology, second language acquisition, sociolinguistics, etc. Term two, maybe half of the time in term two is devoted to what's called a professional practice module. Now, it is not a practicum. It doesn't involve real teaching. But we hope that they will implement some of the theory and relate it in some sense to practice. But of course, they're far from their own teaching contexts. So I've been there for 25 years now. When I arrived, I had been doing some teacher education in Japan as part of a B.Ed program, undergraduate program. But I didn't have a large part in the program. I was mainly focused on my own practitioner research in relation to English teaching. So I would say that my ideas for integrating practitioner research into pre-service teacher education in the UK came really from my own experience as a teacher researcher back in Japan. When I arrived, I saw that there was the term two professional practice module, where we had students for 5 hours per week for 10 weeks. So a short module. And when I arrived, the students were being involved in some peer teaching. You could call it micro teaching, but they were planning lessons and teaching them to a small group of their peers, of their fellow students. And that was, an interesting way to solve the problem of not having a practicum. And then also they were observing lessons given by my colleagues in the department who were teaching English to international students. And they were also engaging in some literature review in relation to different aspects of classroom management or classroom discourse, like teacher talk or question asking or giving instructions. When I arrived, they had an assignment, 6,000 words. There were 2 parts of it. One was to present their lesson plan and the rationale for their lesson plan. There wasn't much reflection on their actual teaching. And there was literature review and observation relating to an area which was not related to their own lesson, and that they chose the area not according to their own teaching, but just quite arbitrarily. So I engaged in a redesign of this module, and these were the constraints, or this is the context. 5 contact hours per week for 10 weeks with a roughly 25 to 30 students. And this is what I came up with. And this is how the module has remained for 25 years now, a long time. And it follows an action research structure. So they teach in small groups to their peers in week 2, or plan and then maybe teach in week 2, 3, and then they have to evaluate their teaching according to a recording, according to fellow students' feedback, and to some extent according to an observer's comments, but mainly it's from their own observation using a video recording they've made of their class. They decide on a particular area they know they need to improve. They feel they need to improve, or at least to investigate further. And in the middle part of the module, they are investigating that area by reading, but also by observing classes, other classes, also interviewing more experienced teachers who are, fellow students in the program. And as a result, they then plan a new lesson, similar to the previous one, who they're going to teach, and they hope to improve their peer teaching. And they evaluate that with the same means. They record it, they ask for feedback, and they look at the transcript, they transcribe parts of it, and according to the topic that they wanted to improve, they try to evaluate it. So I hope you can see it's following a kind of action research structure. And the assignment involves reporting on each stage as they go along. So the first 2,000 words will be about that first stage. The second 2,000 words is a process approach. They can write it as they go along, and in fact, we encourage them to do that. So here are the students. This is just 1 year. I must say that it was great to develop this module together with colleagues. Peter Brown at the back and Emma Ishioda, my colleague, still here at the front. And every year we've been, well, I haven't been doing it recently, but it's still continuing in the same way. Outcomes? Well, I call this an outcome, although it's become the goal of the module. I was very concerned, very interested in learner autonomy and still am. But I was using my experience of developing students' learner autonomy as learners of English into my practice here. I now know. And I realized this was an outcome. It came through feedback that students were giving. Some of them felt their autonomy had been developed. And I realized more and more this was my goal. It had been implicit, but it became the explicit goal to develop their autonomy as learners of teaching, which we could define as ability to develop appropriate skills, knowledge, and attitudes for oneself and as a teacher in collaboration with others, and their ability to evaluate and continuously develop one's teaching into the future. And another outcome after 10 years was that I was invited, not as an outcome, but in other contexts, to engage more with in-service teachers and the Champion Teachers program in Chile. I think I used my experience with this module I've been describing to work with the in-service teachers. So instead of my experience coming from work with in-service teachers into pre-service teacher education, as Melba described, my work was coming from my own experience as a practitioner researcher into this module, and then expanding that idea of exploring the issue before you come into action research. And that informed my practice, I think, with the Champion Teachers program and the development of exploratory action research. So I did evaluate this a lot during the 2000s, and I can share those articles with you if you are interested. I'll drop them into the chat. That's what I wanted to share. And now we're going to move on to Pia Tabali from Chile. Over to you, Pia.
Thank you, Richard. That was nice that you finished with a picture from Chile. So with in-service teachers, so that kind of opens the space for my presentation. Give me 1 second to start sharing. Sorry, can you see my screen? Could you see it? No?
Not yet.
Sorry, let me see if I can do it now. And I need to share.
Yes, it's coming now.
Down. Yeah, because I will show a short video. Okay. So, all right. So thank you very much. My name is Pia Tabali. I don't know. Oh, I would like to have a full screen. Give me 1 second. I don't know why I can. Oh, yes, yeah, I can. All right. So my name is Pia Tabali. As I said before, today I will be talking about the experience in Chile in a undergraduate program too. Yeah, so thank you very much for the invitation and for all the people here joining us in this webinar, right? So I will briefly talk about exploratory action practice, research in pre-service teacher education. Then I will talk about my students' experiences, some challenges, and then I will finish with some future directions, right? So first of all, this is the challenge, right? The first challenge is to introduce exploratory practice with pre-service teachers, right? And I will be talking about one particular situation or a particular university where this happens, right? This is Bernardo Higgins University. You know that in Chile we have something with Bernardo Higgins. I don't know why, but people tend to pay attention to this, right? So why am I saying this? Because EAR is not standard in Chile. It's not that every university or every pre-service teacher has to undergo or do these sort of projects, right? Teachers in Chile or pre-service teachers do have to conduct a piece of research in order to graduate, but not necessarily exploratory action research, right? Usually they tend to do traditional research, right? But this was part of this university to start implementing this new way of researching, right? So students have to conduct these projects as part of the graduation requirements. So there's a lot of pressure on them, right? Their career or their degree completion will depend on this project, right? So these projects start towards the end of their degree, so in the kind of last semesters, right? Because by that time we expect them to have more or stronger academic skills, right? So they can actually engage and understand research. They have 1 year to complete their study, right? So sometimes this can be a problem for them. They feel a little bit pushed, right? And as exploratory action practice or exploratory action research is very much linked with Chile, right? Many things started with the Champion Teachers Program, right? You saw the picture of Richard with the teachers, right? So we use that to link students and to motivate them to research, right? They feel very proud because they see that it has bases in Chile. They see teachers that make sense. They can watch videos from the Champion Teachers Program that even though it's been like almost more than 10 years, it's still, right, part of something that, or a project that makes us proud as teachers, right? And also as for pre-service teachers, we show them the videos, right? And they're like, oh my God. And when they read the handbook, they see themselves reflected. And I think that that's very powerful because usually students or pre-service teachers see that research is something far from them and it's for experts, right? So when they see that and usually they read from books that are, books that are written in England or that are written in Europe or in the States, but that doesn't make much sense to them. So I think that this contextual bond of exploratory action research and Chile help us to encourage our students, right? And you see their faces, how it changes when you show them you tell them, you know what? You know where all of this started? It was in Chile. And then, oh, really? Oh, I cannot believe it. And then it's a good hook, right? But as I said before, it's not standard, right? And this is an important aspect, is that the research projects are linked to their practicum centers, right? So the projects will depend on the topics or whatever they do will depend on the practical, right? So this is our program, right? And this is where the students take 2 modules and then at the end of the 4th semester, and then they continue these projects at the beginning of the following semester, right? So here, one of the issues is that we have holidays in between one cycle and the other, right? And here, we also have in the first semester the national holidays. So that takes lots of space for students to explore, right? And do or conduct this exploration stage. And sometimes they can pose a difficulty. And sometimes, and maybe Richard is also can rings a bell, in Chile, things change a lot from one semester to the other, right? Or from one year to the other. So sometimes you agree to do or to get access to do this research, but then the person was changed and then you have to do everything again. So that sometimes takes a little bit of time, right? So I wanted to show you or share with you the topics that my students chose, right? So their issues are, or the issues that they find are usually related to their experiences in other practicum centers. And usually it's their own problems, right? Or their own issues. So usually anxiety is a big issue for them, right? They're also looking for learner-centered methodologies to teach young learners, which is quite interesting. And they're still thinking about the consequences of the pandemic, right? Migrant students is a big issue also in Chile as the migrant community is booming, like it's growing every day. And now students have to, my future students will have to teach those migrant communities, right? There are also students that are migrant that have no English and no Spanish. Yes, especially in public education. And also materials, right? In Chile, we tend to use handouts a lot. We have like an obsession with handouts, right? So students wanted to see how we can actually find a twist and do this more interesting, right? So I wanted to show you some of the pre-service teaching experiences. I will show you a short video that one of my students recorded. It was a little bit hard because students are on holidays now. So you can see
Hi, my name is
students in a lake because she's on her holidays, right? But kindly offer to help us. So I will hope you can see and listen. Oh, sorry. I don't know what happened. Okay.
Hi, my name is Yasna and I'm doing my practicum at a correctional facility in Santiago de Chile. And our investigation topic is how external factors like outside the classroom and outside the learning environment directly affect the learning environment. We chose this topic because we wanted to understand how the prison system is involved in the educational process of the students, but not necessarily in a positive way. In this practicum experience, I have gained a lot of confidence in my role as a pre-service teacher because I was able to detect a problem and also see like many different factors and how those factors affect to that topic.
So Jasna is talking here about her practicum experience or her exploratory action research experience at a correctional facility. So they also go to jail, let's say. In every prison in Chile, they have a public school, right? So depending on your how much time you have inside jail, either you have access to education or not, right? So my students go and do their practicums there. And for them, it was interesting to see how we can help students to have materials. They usually, when they get raided at jail or in prison, they destroy everything that they have, even their notebooks and the things they use to go to school. So one of the issues for my students is to create materials that can actually, how can I say this? That or not only materials, but create a system in which students can still learning, even though probably they will lose their materials anyway, right? So I wanted to show you this because exploratory action research can take place in different settings, not only in in schools, but also in this type of schools, right? So it was a good way to expand also our horizons when conducting research, right? Of course, there are all kinds of ethical issues related to this, but well, we can talk about it. We also invited some students, pre-service teachers, to present at the RISEL's 10 years event, and they presented the topics. I will show you just a general video of how students were presenting their topics, but I think it's interesting to see how they feel very empowered to talk about their own issues, right? So this is the video.
Well, the data collection presented some sets of challenges, but administrating instruments like
So sorry, this was very short, but they usually they focus on the challenges, but it was very nice to see how pre-service teachers took part of the 10 years event, yes, together with other experienced teachers and researchers, right? So it's good also to give a space to them so they can talk about their voices. So I will show you what they said that were their own challenges in researching in Chile.
Just 1 minute left, Pia. Sorry.
Yes, 1 minute, yes, right? So they usually feel that unpredictable changes, right? This is a big issue in Chile, obtaining access to schools. It's very hard, right? And why? Usually the reason is because schools feel that when you conduct research in their settings, you are going to kind of evaluate them and they feel the threat. So they stop you a little bit. And then that means that from university, we have to do a lot of lobby, right? And talk and send letters and visit the school in order to get access, right? For them, it's also the time frame, it's difficult. They have complexity in designing feasible research studies, right? Considering the time frame that they have, they are usually they are very much inspired to do many things that actually not it's not always possible, right? And I just wanted to, sorry, I will skip this, but so some future directions. I wanted to emphasize this research done by teachers, for teachers, with teachers, and judged by teachers. We repeated this as a mantra, but I think it helped them to feel empowered, right? So they were like, yes. So what is exploratory action research? And they will repeat it with me until we internalize it and make us something that it's part of our practice. Yes. So just to finish, right? So we need to empower this, since there is still a big gap between research and pre-service teacher education, and of course, in-service teacher education. It's necessary to open more spaces for pre-service teachers to present, publish, and disseminate their findings, right? This type of research should have more spaces, not only in conferences, right? But also in teachers associations and networks, so they can benefit from the findings and also learn from younger peers, right? And provide opportunities for them to speak about, or pre-service teachers to speak about their experiences and voices. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pia. Great to hear about all that. And finally, we've got Flavia from Portugal. Over to you, Flavia.
Let me stop sharing. Yes.
Okay. You need to unmute, Flavia, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here in this panel discussion with you, where I will be talking a little bit about action research, not exploratory action research, in the practicum of pre-service teacher education, drawing on our experience at University of Minho. It's not exploratory action research, although I would argue that all action research is in some way exploratory, but we can discuss that later. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't follow exactly the same stages as exploratory action research. This is the context of Masters in Teaching. In Portugal, after the Bologna reform, which was initiated in 2006, we have Masters in Teaching, which are for candidates who already hold a language degree, in the case of language teaching masters. And in the case of the Master in Teaching English to Young Learners, which is the master where I've been working since 2016, when it was created. This was created when English became a compulsory subject in grades 3 and 4 in primary schools. And so this master is 3 semesters long. It's 90 credits. It has lots of course units on English language, literature and culture, childhood education, curriculum, methodology for teaching English to young learners, materials design, and finally the practicum, which is developed over 2 semesters along with other courses. And the practicum follows a model that is similar to all Masters in Teaching in our university. So the students are supervised by a school mentor and a faculty supervisor. I've been a faculty supervisor for around 40 years now. There is a practicum seminar where student teachers are introduced to action research, portfolios, how they write their final report, lesson observation, and so on. And there is also a 20-hour supervision course for school mentors, which is optional, where we introduce our practicum model and also talk about all these aspects of the model. They need to design an action research project. It's a small-scale action research project. And for that, they need to conduct context analysis, lesson observation, guided readings, and supervision sessions. They teach in their mentors classes for 24 hours, and at least 9 hours are dedicated for the action research project, which is conducted in only 1 class. And faculty supervisors observe 3 project lessons. During the practicum year, student teachers produce a reflective portfolio where they talk about their teaching philosophy, their action research plan, the project development, and reflect about their practice. And they also need to produce a final report on the project, which is defended publicly and later uploaded in the institutional online repository. Okay, this is the general idea of the context. This model, this practicum model, rests on 2 main ideas. A vision of education and language education based on humanistic and democratic values. And here we value the idea of teacher-learner autonomy, and also the use of action research at the service of learner-centered pedagogies and reflective professional development. We all know that there is always a gap between reality and ideals, what language education is and what it should be, what we think it should be. And we may have different ideals, but in this case, we believe that language education should be dialogic, democratic, critical, and empowering. Of course, it's very difficult to reach this ideal, but the ideal is something that should guide us to transform reality. So in this sense, action research is used as a means to explore what language education can be. That is the space of possibilities where student teachers are encouraged to open windows to what we might call a re-idealistic transformation, something between reality and ideals. Just to give you a very short example of a project I supervised recently, this project was developed by Patricia with a 4th grade class, and this is a translation of the title of the project and the title of the report, Once Upon a Time, Gender Equality and Experience in English Teaching in Primary Education. And so she explored the strategy of storytelling to explore gender issues. I will invite you to read a little bit of the text she has in the introduction to the report. Therefore, through the project presented here, I aim to inspire children to reflect on tested established ideas, paving the way for the formation of reflective, conscious, and proactive citizens in the construction of a fairer, more inclusive, and balanced society in terms of rights and duties for men and women. I'm not going to talk to you about this project, but this gives you an idea of how action research projects can be developed within this interspace between reality and ideals. I will not make a distinction between challenges and achievements, because I think the main challenges we face in doing this work with the student teachers also result in important achievements. So nurturing personal interests while questioning ingrained beliefs and practices, that is developing a critical view of language education. This is a big challenge we face right from the beginning. It's also an achievement. Designing context-appropriate, conceptually sound, learner-centered action research projects. Articulating projects with formal curricula, yet exploring new avenues. That is, student teachers act as curriculum managers, but also as curriculum designers. Designing language education and data collection strategies and materials with a pedagogical purpose in mind, and analyzing data regularly to rethink and reshape teaching. Using public theory to eliminate practice, but also building personal theories based on experience, and writing critical narratives of practice, in our case, in their portfolios and final reports. Of course, supervision plays an important role here, and I use a capital V there, inspired by Duncan Waite, to indicate, as he says, the visionary potential of relationships and dialogues between supervisors and in this case, student teachers, in order to surpass constraints, envision possibilities, and explore those possibilities in practice. I believe that action research in pre-service teacher education is both necessary and controversial. It's not necessary, although controversial. It's both things due to its transformative potential, because it involves challenging traditions in teaching and in teacher education, seeing teachers and teacher educators as agents of change and producers of professional knowledge, exploring pedagogy as a space for personal and interpersonal empowerment and for social transformation. And I think it's really important to develop a scholarship of pre-service teacher education in order to inquire into it and advance the profession itself. So I leave you with some examples of papers or chapters I, with other colleagues, have produced based on research into pre-service teacher education, especially with a focus on the role of inquiry, so inquiry-based professional learning in the practice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Flavia. And it's been great for me personally to re-engage with Flavia's work and Melba's work also, and to hear from relatively junior, I suppose, in terms of career, teacher educators, Elyanora and Pia, and also Fauzia, of course. Her work is well known in the field. So it's been really, really great to hear of all of these experiences, contextual experiences, but all with the common theme of integrating different forms of maybe different forms, or maybe the same form of practitioner research into pre-service teacher education. And what struck me over the years is knowing these great examples of practice, that I'd just like to ask a question then, to maybe start with to Flavia and to Melba and Fauzia particularly, about whether you have been successful at all in encouraging others in your context or in other contexts known to you to integrate practitioner research into the teacher education which goes on in their universities or their contexts. I don't know, Flavia, Melba, or Fauzia, because I'm just addressing you because you've had more experience.
Yeah, I can maybe start. Although this model for the Masters in Teaching was designed in 2007-8, it rests on a previous project I had with other colleagues within the supervision of language teachers, English and Spanish. And this supervision project actually started back in 1995. So since 1995, we have been exploring action research for promoting teacher and learner autonomy in the practicum. And this was an isolated experience in our university because before the Bologna process, there was no model for the practicum. We had regulations, but each supervisor acted as they pleased. So there was not really a conception of the practicum as a space where there need to be some formative strategies and where action research can be a main strategy. So this was an isolated case for the training of teachers of English and Spanish. And when the Bologna reform was initiated, I was invited to propose a model for the practicum for all masters in teaching. So now we have 13 masters in teaching in different subjects. And the practicum model is common to all these masters. So in all these masters, student teachers need to develop action research projects, and the assumptions are the same. And this was a great opportunity to expand what was being done already in a very small part of our group of student teachers to all the student teachers. Of course, this is not done in the same way in all masters, but the principles and the strategies are the same. And we have been conducting studies on this model, which have shown some constraints, but also the potential of the model. And we have been, as a collective of teacher educators, improving the model on the basis of this research. So I might say that there was an expansion to all the masters in teaching. And there are other universities, especially since the Bologna reform, because since the Bologna reform, the new decree law, which was issued in 2007, pointed out the need to base teaching on research. And this was understood in many different ways. Some universities just created research courses. Others tried to articulate teaching and research within the practicum, and this was our case, but also the case of other universities. So at present, there are many universities which somehow have included research into the practicum.
Well, that's good to hear. And that tension between, I suppose, what we could call relatively academic research and teachers' research is often there, isn't it? And how universities interpret the research element, I suppose. Anyway, Melba, over to you. Did you?
Yes, I think that we have, of course, many things in common with experiences that you have just presented. And the fact that in the case of the research component in initial teacher education is compulsory. I mean, the Ministry of Education regulations for BA programs establish that we should introduce research as part of the curriculum, yes? However, I think that there have been certain situations that have been like positive, I would say like inspiring. In the 90s, Colombia, 27 universities who had majors in English embarked in a project that decided to evaluate the curriculum of English teacher preparation, particularly. And at that time, more attention was given to the different components, the linguistic component, language, research. And there was this idea of promoting action research as a way to foster research, yes, in the BA programs, particularly the ones that emphasize in English. After that, some universities decided to concentrate on that approach in particular. However, most universities realized that if the idea was also to promote further education, like postgraduate level, for example, we could explore different alternatives. And also it had to do with some sort of like, I would say like tradition in our field, right? That some people would see like action research with some critical lenses and associating action research with things that are like with lower status, if I could say so. However, the interesting point was that this idea of promoting attention to the research component generated lots of interest among the BA programs and majors that have English, French, German, for example, in our case, decided to pay more attention to the organization of the research component in the curriculum. And so the positive things for the positive element for us is that more attention has been given to what's going on with this component. And also more studies are conducted by scholars, by teacher educators in Colombian universities. Many of us have embarked in international nets as well. We have participated in different scenarios as well. And also the idea of demystifying this conception of who is the one who has the chance to get published in professional journals. And in my case, as I started, and thank you, Richard and Flavia, you have been just fantastic. You have helped us with Profile as well. We started with the idea of creating a journal to include different voices, not only teacher educators, but at the beginning, for example, in Profile, opening doors to school teachers who were doing action research and innovation, publishing their stories at the beginning. That was a very modest publication, if I could say. And then little by little, the community became very interested in the publication, and we opened doors to novice teacher researchers. So I started with this idea of inviting my student teachers to organize the papers and to get published. And now, 25 years after the creation of Profile, we have contributions from different parts of the world. At the beginning, novice teacher researchers, many of them pre-service teachers who concluded their projects. And also we decided to open doors to MA students and even PhD students who would have the chance to publish their first article. And a final aspect that I would like to mention is the role of the mentor. In many cases, the role play, you know that as mentors, we even co-write papers with our mentees. And so we said, why not accepting those papers that come from novice teacher researchers, pre-service teachers, for example, and their mentors. If that is the case, I mean, the first author is the novice teacher researcher, and the co-author is the mentor. And that has to do with the idea of opening doors to different voices in publication.
Thank you, Melba. Yeah. I wonder
can I just take one thing as using this platform?
Yes.
I just like to mention to everybody that we do a research expo. We started that last year. And one of the, there are several themes in that, but the idea is to encourage novice researchers and provide them a platform to present their work. It's an online expo. We did it last year and we'd like to do it again this year. So I will be sending out a call for papers. Please encourage your students from all those wonderful countries where they've been doing, or your student teachers, to actually present on that platform. So it becomes last time it was at a national level. This time we'd like to go international with your students presenting also. So yeah, I'll be sending that out pretty soon on the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Fauzia. And so I'd like to just ask Elyanora and Pia if you have any comments or any reflections. Yes, I know that there are people who want to ask questions, but I just want to ask you first of all if you have any reflections arising from listening to today's presentations. If you don't, it's fine. But Elyanora?
Well, I would definitely say so. I feel the same experience while I was working with teacher educators and the same challenges, I would say. And I even took notes on the same challenges because I felt the same. And yeah, it's good to work with teacher educators. And nowadays, I think we started with teacher educators and student teachers, we started to learn more that teacher research can help them become better teachers, can develop their teacher reflections. And the thing that I like it when I talked to one of my student teachers who was involved in this project, that she said, oh, like I hated teaching at the beginning, but now after doing exploratory action research, I started to love and I want to stay in teaching. And I think that was the most important um, I would say reflection that I heard, and I was so happy. So thank you.
Thanks, Olivia. Yeah, there are definitely different reasons for doing this, what we're talking about today. There's several different reasons have come up in different presentations, and some of these reasons sort of arise from the practice, don't they? Some of them also are ideals, as Flavia was emphasizing. Yes, Pia, anything you would like to comment on before you ask?
Yeah.
Anna wants to ask a question. Pia.
I was very much inspired by Melba's presentation, not only because we shared like a sort of, context in the region, but also because I think that they managed to bridge the gap that we are trying to address now. In Chile, we still have this very kind of hierarchical way to see or to talk to or engage with researchers, right? Publications and everything. So usually it will be an issue to get a student published, let's say. So you can do it internally in your university if they have a sort of articles or sort of journal. But if not, it gets difficult. For example, I showed you examples from the RISELT, but I think that's the only conference where student teachers go and present the research projects, right? And it was the first time I saw it actually. And then we had to fight in RISELT in order to get them to present, right? Or just to give them a space or invite them in or invite pre-service teachers to different events, right? So I think that was very inspiring for me. Also the other presentations, but most of them, the others were on postgraduate education. So, and I was talking about something different. But I think that we still need to see how pre-service teachers can take all of these learnings of EAR and put it in practice when they become in-service teachers. I always have this question, right? Because it sounds very nice. We managed to learn how to conduct research. We empower pre-service teachers, but then what happens after? I remember having the same conversation with Ana Maria, and I still have this curiosity, right? It will be nice to talk to these teachers in the future, in a couple of years when they are teachers or in their schools and see if they're using it or not, and how this can actually help our students in the future, right? Like how this can. So you go from pre-service teachers and they become in-service teachers, and I guess that should also impact their students, right? And education in general. So I think that we still, or at least in Chile, we need to see how we can, see the whole process and how this can inform their practice. So
That's for
yes.
sure. So I think today we are focusing on pre-service, but after we've developed these great sort of structures and ways of doing things, I think our thoughts start to turn to, well, could we encourage others to do the same? That's one question, but also what happens to our students, our teachers, after they become teachers? And of course, a lot of the events at this festival have all really been about in-service support for in-service teachers, but joining these things up is very, very important. And I think we've heard some cases actually today where, for example, publishing together with in-service teachers and pre-service teachers. We have the ITEFL Research SIG conference, Teachers Research Conference, where we are welcoming student teachers to come to present more and more. And I know that from Flavia's experience, there was a great case of university-school partnership where school teachers were coming to the university once, I don't know how often, once a week or once a month, GTPA. And I always cite that as a great case of university school partnership. But joining these things together is the challenge, isn't it? And yeah. Shall we throw open the floor to our audience? They've been saying in the chat that how excellent the presentations have been, variety of contexts, very well structured program, and they've really found it inspiring. Anna, do you have a question?
I do have well, Pia has already asked my question, which is I was interested in hearing if anybody had a chance to follow up on their pre-service teachers and see whether or not that kind of philosophy of EAR or AR, whether they've been able to carry it forward into their as an integral part of their practice. Because it's a kind of mindset about how you approach teaching and how you approach the classroom.
Melba,
Pia kind of anticipated my question by she said more.
Melba would like to answer, I think. Go ahead.
Yes, I think that, thank you for the question. And I think that this is a common concern among us, yes. And I just mentioned in one line of my presentation is this connection between pre and in-service teacher education, right? Because from my experience, as I said, I decided to embark on mentoring or introducing classroom research in pre-service teacher education after living this experience within service education and also as a former school teacher. And I realized that it is very important to bridge the gap, as Pia said, between initial and in-service teacher education, right? So one aspect that has been very positive for us is embarking in research that has to do with exploring in-service teacher education. So we have conducted research in the area of the experiences of pre-service teachers doing research to complete or to comply with this requirement for graduation, right? So that has implied working with students who are about to finish and those who are already working in different settings. And also we have conducted research concerning the views or the expectations the educational community has in connection to future teachers' profiles or language teachers' profile, exploring things like, and then also the possibility of inviting those graduates to be part of our programs in extension courses, for example, teaching children, adolescents, and adults, and in some cases inviting them to be part of our research groups. So that idea of having novice teacher researchers being part of our research groups and the projects that we conduct for school teachers, for example, those strategies have been very helpful in order to keep this kind of contact with them. So those are a couple of experiences that I can mention. And finally, the invitation to those graduates to come to the Profile Symposium or to the other conferences that we organize. And last but not least, this movement that luckily we have in Colombia to invite pre and in-service teachers to be part of national and international conferences. So I think that is a way to maintain this kind of contact and to see a little bit more about what happens with our student teachers once they start the professional careers.
Mm. So there was a kind of anti-hierarchical theme emerging, I think, across several experiences here. And as Flavia said, maybe it's a challenge to existing structures and therefore hard but inspiring. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Flavia, but I see that Shifa has a question. I think this has to be the last question. Over to you. Yes. Okay.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for supervising this chat this afternoon, and thank you to all the presenters. I really enjoyed hearing that educators coming into the profession are expanding their repertoire in terms of the kind of education they are offering. I just want to know to what extent, and this is really open to all the people on the panel, the reality of classroom teaching today is that once your pre-service teachers start working full-time in classrooms, the burdens on them are a reality. And teacher burnout is a reality today. So the reason why classroom teachers are not practitioners, are not educator practitioners who do not get involved in research is because they simply don't have the time. So I'd like to know, in terms of you preparing these young educators, how do you envisage them balancing the responsibilities and the classroom loads that is very real in education today, plus including finding time for research? Do you have any kind of conversation around that with your young educators?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Flavia and Fauzia just to end today's talk, whether you have any response to that or anything else. Yes.
Yeah, I would just like to say that we do a 1-year induction program with teachers in schools, in our partner schools. And you've very rightly said that they don't have the time, but what we look for is this research mindset. And the time is a real issue, because we were doing a project in the school on language of instruction, and we invited an open invitation to all our graduates who are now who we are now mentoring in the induction phase to join us. They were very excited. They said they will want to do it, but finally, I think only 2 people were able to actually get some data, because then they were talking about the problems of data collection and how did they do that, and however, the 2 that did come over, because we didn't want to make it too formal, it's not that you have to actually come and do systematic data collection. We invited them to a symposium, and we called it Voices from the Classroom. And that made them feel more comfortable, and they were able to share a lot of insights from their own classrooms. So I have a feeling that initially we just need to get them to, and somebody talked about earlier, I think Melba was the one who said, create a mindset of research. So they're looking at all the problems, and they are discussing it with each other. I think that's the most important thing that I feel is a gain from this action research experience.
Yeah, thanks, Fauzia. And Flavia, is there anything you'd like to add, or any final words?
Yeah. Okay, I don't think that the use of action research in pre-service teacher education is aimed at training future researchers. I think it's aimed at training or educating better educators. And of course, they can use action research because they know how to use it, right? And they can use it when they have the time, when they have the support, when they find it's useful for them. And so teaching in schools is not, at least in Portugal, teachers, as you say, do not have time to do research because it's not their priority. But they can have collective projects similar to action research projects. They do have these projects. And we see lots of in-service teachers coming back to the university for other programs, master programs, PhD programs, where they feel the need to further explore their practice, and they go back to action research processes. But I don't see this as a must in a teacher teaching in school. I see action research as one of the strategies they might use whenever they find it necessary and they have the conditions necessary to conduct it. Because going through the process of action research, and this is what we have been experiencing with our student teachers when they talk about it, write about it, going through this process changes their mindset, not only in terms of looking more critically at the classroom, but also in terms of looking at language education far beyond a space for teaching the language. So as you saw in the example I brought, like discussing gender issues with fourth graders through storytelling in English, I think this was a really interesting and relevant project that shows that language education can and should move beyond the teaching of the language. And this is, I think, a very important change in the mindset of student teachers who go through critical action research.
Yeah, I think that really highlights the importance of what we're talking about today. That it's, we're not preparing them as specifically as researchers, but there are more important reasons to engage student teachers or in practitioner research, and that's come through really strongly. I think it's been very inspiring for all of us to hear about one another's experience, and I hope it will be inspiring for many people involved in teacher education, pre-service teacher education, to show how it's possible, how it is possible to do this, and how rewarding and empowering it can be to engage in this. So finally, thank you so much to our great presenters today. And yeah, thank you. And goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you for sharing and for this
Thank
opportunity. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.